Hello, this is Marianne, and for the next hour I will be reading from the July 2026 issue of the Buffalo Latino Village on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Los dos Knicks Latinos en Nueva York. Latino pride of the Dominican, Puerto Rican, and Mexican kind. Two Latino basketball players help lead the New York Knicks for generations. Latino basketball fans have cheered for the New York Knicks while waiting to see players who reflected our own communities. Today, that dream has become a reality. The New York Knicks feature two outstanding Latino players who have become key contributors to the team's success. Karl Anthony Towns, whose family roots are in the Dominican Republic, and Jose Alvarado, who proudly embraces both his Puerto Rican and Mexican heritage. Their presence represents more than basketball. They symbolize the growing influence of Latinos in professional sports and serve as role models for young people throughout New York, Puerto Rico, and Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Latino communities across the United States. Karl Anthony Towns has long celebrated his Dominican heritage and has become one of the NBA's elite players. Meanwhile, Jose Alvarado, known throughout the league as Grand Theft Alvarado, has earned the admiration of fans through his determination, hustle, and relentless defense. The son of a Puerto Rican father and a Mexican mother, Alvarado proudly represents two rich cultures and embodies the diversity of the Latino experience in America. Together, Towns and Alvarado remind us that Latino excellence knows no borders. Their success on the court reflects the contributions that Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Mexicans, and all Latinos make every day in communities throughout the nation. For Latino basketball fans, seeing these two players wearing the blue and orange of the New York Knicks is more than a sports story. It is a story of culture, identity, and pride. Next article. Peace Center hires Latina as executive director by Victoria Ross. The Western New York Peace Center, one of the region's longest-standing organizations dedicated to peace and justice and nonviolence, has announced the hiring of Stephanie Mejia as its new executive director. She brings a record of community advocacy, nonprofit leadership, and frontline service to vulnerable populations across Buffalo and Western New York. A daughter of immigrants and a long-time resident of Buffalo's West Side, Mejia has built her career around supporting marginalized communities, advancing human rights, and strengthening grassroots networks. She previously served as the director of MRT Housing at Evergreen Health Services, where she oversaw Medicaid-funded housing programs across 3 counties, coordinated services for individuals and families experiencing homelessness with chronic illnesses, and led teams working directly with those in crisis. Before that role, she worked as a housing services coordinator for Catholic Charities of Buffalo, overseeing their rapid rehousing and homeless prevention programs, and providing case management and community support. Mejia is also known for her public advocacy and writing, contributing essays and commentary on immigrant experiences, community resilience, and social justice issues. She currently serves on the board of directors for Big Table Community Cafe, a pay-what-you-can nonprofit on Buffalo's West Side dedicated to food security and community nourishment, and Home, Housing Opportunities Made Equal, a civil rights organization working towards fair housing across Western New York. We are thrilled to welcome Stephanie Mejia into this leadership role, said Vicky Ross, currently WNY Peace Center interim co-director. associated with the WNYPC since moving to Buffalo in 2007. Her lived experience, professional expertise, and deep commitment to justice reflect the values that have guided the Peace Center for over 5 decades. Stephanie represents the next generation of leadership in our movement. She is young, community-rooted, and is just the right person, possesses the experience it will take to guide the Peace Center to the next phase of its mission. The WNYPC was one of the first chapters of Reverend Dr. King's clergy and laity concerned and strives to live up to his vision and activities. Mejia holds a bachelor's degree in public policy from Howard and William Smith Colleges and an executive master of public administration, bringing both academic training and practical experience to her new position. I am honored to join the WNY Peace Center at such a critical moment for our community. The work of peace and justice is collective work. I look forward to building with our members, partners, and neighbors to strengthen our shared vision for a more equitable Western New York, Mejia said in a recent radio interview. As executive director, Mejia will lead the organization's ongoing initiatives in racial justice, immigrant rights, anti-violence work, environmental justice, and community education, while also guiding new programs that reflect the evolving needs of the region. Page 2. On the matter of ICE, community leaders urged to use their cultural platforms to demand justice. Latino leaders and community members across the region are joining forces to resist the policies of the Trump administration, including escalating ICE operations that have instilled fear in immigrant communities. This coordinated movement calls on cultural institutions and community celebrations to step forward as vehicles for justice and solidarity. The statement speaks to the urgent need for unity in the face of deportation raids, anti-immigrant rhetoric, and policies that target Latino families. Community leaders assert that silence is not an option and that every gathering, from neighborhood festivals to major cultural parades, carries the power to amplify the voices of those most affected. Among the events specifically called upon to use their platforms are the Grease Pole Festival and the Puerto Rican Hispanic Day Parade. Organizers and attendees are encouraged to incorporate visible messages of resistance, solidarity, and community protection into these celebrations, transforming cultural pride into civic action. We will not be invisible. Our cultural festivals, parades, are acts of survival and resistance. We invite every Latino leader, community organization, and ally to stand with us and make their voices heard at every public gathering, said Alberto, publisher of the Buffalo Latino Village. Comment on Alberto Capa's lecture, Latinos in the Age of ICE, by Steve Peraza. A Latina colleague of mine attended a rally in front of Delaware North in downtown Buffalo, where there is a U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement office. On that blustery spring day, they were protesting ICE in the city of good neighbors. As I remember, she was moved to tears by the solidarity she felt in a crowd filled with white American protesters who objected to ICE tactics in the city. These white Americans are not the target of ICE, she said, yet they protest anyway. Soon after she praised their presence, however, she wondered aloud, quite somberly, why the Latino community had not joined the protest in full force. Where were my people? She seemed to be asking. I had to take a moment to check myself. Why wasn't I there? I am Latino, Honduran, in fact one of the Central American groups most viciously targeted by ICE. I have every reason to protest. My parents are citizens now, but they were immigrants who naturalized. a legal process that's currently under assault. More reason for me to stand up to ICE, yet I fear them, and for myself, frankly, because I don't believe ICE operates on legal terms. I believe they are terrorists. That said, I am willing to overcome my fear to fight for what's right, for what's legal, and for what's just in our society. And I am encouraged by my Latino peers, especially Puerto Ricans in the city. Folks like Alberto Capas are inspiring me to stand in solidarity against the ICE dragnet. Puerto Rican institutions in Buffalo, with their history, visibility, and established networks, wrote Alberto Capas, must open their doors, share their resources, and stand publicly with the non-citizen Latino community, not as charity but as solidarity. This is a clarion call to action. I will stand with you, Mr. Capas, in defense of the Latino diaspora here in Buffalo and beyond. It's time that we join our white American allies, among others. If Latinos are the target of terrorism, then Latinos should also show solidarity in protest. This is our issue, all Americans, especially Latino U.S. citizens. Spring 2026, LE Magazine honors Latina entrepreneurial power. This past month, Latinas Evolving officially launched the Spring 2026 edition of LE Magazine, a digital publication dedicated to elevating the stories, expertise, and impact of Latina entrepreneurs. Since its inception, Latinas Evolving has helped amplify the voices of more than 140 Latina entrepreneurs and leaders through its magazine events, workshops, partnerships, and digital storytelling initiatives. LE Magazine serves as a platform to increase visibility, foster connections, and inspire future generations of entrepreneurs. The Spring 2026 edition of LE Magazine is now available online at latinas-evolving-magazine.hflip.co/LE Spring 2026 MAG. This was a summary of the article. Page 3. The Mom Candidate, la candidata mamá, por Talía Rodríguez. El mes pasado tuve la oportunidad de participar en un grupo de enfoque sobre latinas en el servicio público junto a una de mis modelos a seguir. Durante la conversación repetí una frase que he usado antes, que yo era una candidata mamá. Esa frase me hizo reflexionar, así que quise desarrollarla un poco más aquí. Cuando comencé mi campaña, empecé a describirme como una candidata mamá, no porque la maternidad fuera mi única cualificación, sino porque era una de las formas más claras de explicar por qué estaba aspirando al cargo y cómo pensaba liderar. Al lanzarme por primera vez, aprendí algo importante: conoce quién eres y camina con eso. En vez de minimizar mi identidad como latina, madre y mujer trabajadora, decidí abrazarla. Hablé abiertamente sobre correr de una reunión a otra mientras cumplía con mis responsabilidades de crianza, sobre compartir la pantalla de Zoom con mi hijo cuando aparecía para saludar, sobre pensar qué cocinar entre compromisos y sobre la montaña de ropa esperando en casa. Cuanto más honesta era, más la gente conectaba conmigo. No buscaban una versión pulida de una candidata, buscaban a alguien real. Y esto va mucho más allá de mi experiencia personal. Según Unidos US, cada año alrededor de 1 millón de ciudadanos latinos cumplen 18 años y se vuelven elegibles para votar. Eso significa 2 millones de nuevos votantes latinos para 2026 y 4 millones para 2028. Nuestros familiares, vecinos y compañeros de trabajo latinos están equilibrando empleo, cuido, recogidos de la escuela, cocinar la cena y la ropa por lavar, y aún así encuentran tiempo para votar, registrarse, abogar y liderar. La representación no se trata solo de quien ocupa un cargo, se trata de quien se siente bienvenido a participar, incluso fuera de cámara, con las manos ocupadas y la vida llena. Talia Rodríguez representa el Distrito Oeste en la Junta de Educación de Buffalo. También es columnista sindicada y líder comunitaria. Próximo artículo. Celebrando nuestras contribuciones a América por Angélica Aquino. Ha llegado el 4 de julio. Este año es muy especial en muchos niveles. Estamos celebrando 250 años de la fundación de nuestra nación. También estamos en un momento crucial como sociedad. Nosotros, como estadounidenses de todos los ámbitos y miembros de diferentes caminos espirituales, hemos compartido y seguimos encontrando formas de celebrar nuestra búsqueda de paz y tranquilidad en la patria. El deseo de verdadera paz y tranquilidad son valores comunes que nos unen a todos, ya que somos la prueba viviente de que nuestras comunidades están construidas y prosperamos cuando nos apoyamos y celebramos mutuamente. Desde East 152nd Street y Melrose en el South Bronx hasta el Mexican Café en Southwest 8th Street en el sur de Florida y el camión de tacos en Laredo, Texas, estadounidenses de todos los orígenes étnicos se están reuniendo para reflexionar sobre lo que nos hace únicos como nación. Nuestras diferencias pueden ser demasiadas en cuanto al espectro político y la postura sobre las políticas nacionales y exteriores. Sin embargo, nuestras similitudes son más entre el espíritu de lo que se puede hacer de los neoyorquinos que el amor y el cuidado tierno por la tierra de los agricultores en Dakota del Norte que enseñan agricultura y sostenibilidad a estudiantes de todo el mundo que vienen a estudiar a Estados Unidos. En casi todas las zonas de esta tierra llamamos a los Estados Unidos de América. Hay manos y mentes latinas que contribuyen y moldean la belleza de nuestra singularidad. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Latino Village on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Page 4, Un momento justo por la paz, by Victoria Ross. Camp Peace Prints, 19th Annual Democracy in Action. Here comes the 19th Annual Camp Peace Prints. This year, campers and youth who attended previously are planning the camp. The first thing the youth decided was the camp's theme, democracy. With youth planning the camp, that means it is truly democracy in action. Camp of by and for the campers and youth mentors. And as always, the first thing on our agenda at camp is the peace agreement, an agreement on how people will behave, an agreement created of, by, and for the camp. Camp Peace Prints, organized and co-founded by the WNY Peace Center, is an alternative day camp for children 8 through 14 years old, centered on justice, leadership development, peaceful conflict resolution, the arts, and the beloved community. It runs July the 20th until the 31st, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. till 3 p.m., except for 2 or 3 slightly longer field trip days. Lincoln Memorial United Methodist Church, 641 Maston at Main and Northland is graciously hosted the camp. There's a gym, a vegetable garden, and a field all at our disposal. The democracy theme means that besides the usual swimming and daily recreation camp activities, we will focus on the theme of democracy. Speakers include Samantha White, President Lori Robinson, both of the League of Women Voters Buffalo Niagara, Alex Bornemitska from NYPIRG, New York Public Interest Research Group, and Joanne Simmons, Executive Director of the Niagara Frontier Movement for the Advocacy of African American Human Rights, Inc. Camp will also hold 2 short voter registration drives, one at the Walden Galleria on July the 29th at 10:30 a.m. until noon, and the second at Canal Side Friday on July the 31st from 10:30 a.m. until 11:30 a.m., followed by a press conference, as people overseeing and collecting voter registration must be over 18 by law. The camp's adult volunteers and volunteers from the various groups listed above will be doing the paperwork, with the campers and youth mentors doing the outreach and recruitment. Of note, after the Walden Galleria voter registration and lunch, we plan to go to the fun zone, an amazing trampoline opportunity. The extensive art opportunities for campers also bring the democracy theme. Campers will be designing postcards for voters, which will be used by Stand Up Western New York in their work, making signs displaying signs of democracy like free speech, free press, equal and fair treatment under the law, etc. And lastly, Democracy Rocks. Jan Burns of the Prevention Council of Erie County also beautifully facilitate art sessions, which this year will likely include making a democracy banner. We have opportunities for campers 8 through 14 years old and adult volunteers. Camp is $100 a week, with sliding scale or full scholarship available. For more information, please visit wnypeace.org. Next article. La nueva dirección nunca se detuvo, solo se volvió más difícil de notar. Por Housing Opportunities Made Equal. Cuando pensamos en discriminación en la vivienda, solemos imaginar actos evidentes, un propietario negándose abiertamente a alquilar por motivos de raza. Pero la discriminación ha cambiado. Hoy opera de manera más silenciosa, sutil y difícil de detectar. Uno de los mecanismos más comunes es el steering, guiar a las personas hacia o lejos de ciertos vecindarios u oportunidades de vivienda basándose en características protegidas como raza, etnia, idioma, discapacidad u origen nacional. El steering no siempre se expresa como una negativa directa. A menudo aparece en forma de sugerencias, información incompleta o silencio estratégico. Una familia hispanoparlante puede escuchar que un apartamento ya no está disponible mientras continúa anunciándose. A familias latinas se les muestran unidades solo en ciertas zonas, mientras que a familias blancas se les dirige hacia vecindarios con más recursos. No hace falta mencionar la raza para que las suposiciones sobre quién pertenece, dónde, limiten las opciones que reciban las personas. Comentarios como «se sentirían más cómodos allá» o «este vecindario no es el adecuado» pueden parecer inocentes, pero tienen consecuencias reales. Buffalo conoce bien estos patrones. Sigue siendo una de las áreas metropolitanas más segregadas del país, resultante de décadas de redlining, discriminación en préstamos, desinversión, construcción de autopistas y políticas que concentraron a comunidades de color en zonas específicas, mientras los recursos fluían hacia otras partes. Ese legado sigue visible hoy en el acceso desigual a escuelas, en las condiciones ambientales, en los valores de propiedad, en las tasas de vacancia e incluso en la esperanza de vida. La vivienda determina oportunidades. ¿Dónde vive una persona influyente en su educación, transporte, empleo, salud y capacidad de construir estabilidad económica? El steering es peligroso porque refuerza la segregación mientras crea la ilusión de que las desigualdades actuales son simplemente el resultado de elecciones personales. En realidad, muchas familias nunca han tenido acceso a las mismas opciones. Para las comunidades latinas e inmigrantes en Buffalo, este problema es especialmente urgente. Las barreras lingüísticas, el temor a represalias por estatus migratorio, los propietarios abusivos y el aumento de las rentas crean un entorno donde la información desigual puede ser tan dañina como una negación abierta. Cuando las oportunidades se comparten selectivamente o se retienen en silencio, las familias terminan concentradas en menos vecindarios, con menos recursos y mayor riesgo de desplazamiento. Al mismo tiempo, el aumento de precios y el interés de inversionistas están formando vecindarios históricamente latinos e inmigrantes. Residentes que sostuvieron estas comunidades durante décadas ahora enfrentan presión por la especulación y la reurbanización. El steering moderno también se manifiesta en quién recibe información primero, quién accede a oportunidades y quién queda excluido cuando un vecindario se vuelve más deseable. Muchas personas no saben que el steering es ilegal, incluso cuando es sutil. La discriminación no siempre se ve como una solicitud rechazada, a veces se manifiesta como información faltante, opciones limitadas o suposiciones sobre dónde debe vivir alguien. Reconocer estos patrones es esencial para garantizar igualdad de acceso y la libertad de elegir. Next article, Investing in Ourselves by Virginia McIntyre. Blueberries, a superfood. The sweet, juicy berry is like a salute to summertime, though it wasn't just its taste that won its own national month. The blueberry, often referred to as a superfood, is full of antioxidants. These antioxidants make the berry an extremely healthy snack, as well as a valuable tool in our cancer prevention toolbox. The cancer-fighting agents found in blueberries include anthocyanosides and resveratrol. Anthocyanosides are the most potent antioxidants and have been found to have anti-cancer properties, including radical scavenging activity, stimulation of phase 2 detoxifying enzymes, and reduced cell proliferation and inflammation. Resveratrol, also found in the skin of red grapes, has health benefits. Along with promoting cardiovascular health, resveratrol inhibits all cancer stages. This powerful antioxidant also acts as a chemopreventive agent and displays chemotherapeutic properties such as anti-inflammation. Due to these superfood properties, researchers have recently begun studying the effects of blueberry extract in radiation treatment. Many have concluded that this addition to radiation treatment can significantly improve the treatment's efficacy. The blueberry extract helps sensitivize cancer cells to radiation. Continuing from the momentum of this finding, the antioxidants in blueberries were also found to reduce the abnormal cell growth that fuels cancer development. As with all great findings, further research is required to expand upon the understanding of blueberries' cancer properties. Additional research will aid researchers and medical professionals in understanding how blueberries can be used in the realms of cancer treatment and cancer prevention. However, as the world waits for blueberry extract to be approved in mainstream treatment, there is no better time than the present to enjoy a healthy blueberry snack. National Blueberry Month is the perfect opportunity to incorporate these superfood berries into every meal. Page 6. Cuando jugar también es aprender quiénes somos, por Dianís Román Rodríguez. Para quienes criamos niños en la diáspora, mantener viva nuestra cultura es una responsabilidad y un privilegio. Una de las formas más efectivas de lograrlo es a través del arte, la creatividad y el juego. Los niños aprenden mientras crean. Cuando participan en actividades culturales, realizan artesanías o escuchan historias sobre nuestras raíces, no solo se entretienen, también fortalecen su identidad y desarrollan un sentido de pertenencia a su cultura. Por eso, cada año tenemos el honor de colaborar como voluntarios junto a El Batey en las actividades de arte del Areito, un evento educativo y gratuito para toda la comunidad que este año celebra su 5º aniversario. Durante el mes de julio, niños y familias tienen la oportunidad de aprender sobre nuestra herencia cultural a través del arte, la música, historia y experiencias creativas que conectan a las nuevas generaciones con sus raíces. Iniciativas como estas demuestran que la educación cultural puede ser accesible, divertida y significativa. También nos recuerdan que la cultura no solo se enseña en los libros, se vive, se comparte y se transmite de generación en generación. Como artista y educadora cultural, continúo trabajando en proyectos que promuevan ese aprendizaje, incluyendo futuros materiales educativos, juegos y un libro para colorear inspirado en la cultura taína. Porque cuando un niño conoce sus raíces, crece con orgullo, identidad y un mayor sentido de quién es. La cultura se fortalece cuando la compartimos y el arte es una de las herramientas más poderosas para hacerlo. El Areito, quinto Festival de la Herencia Taína, se celebrará el 25 de julio de 2026 de 1 a 5 de la tarde en el Prospect Park en la Niagara Street and Porter Avenue. Page 7. A Journey from Virginia Street to Niagara Street, The Untold Story of Buffalo's Puerto Rican Parade, by Padre Rodriguez. Every August, thousands of spectators line the streets of Buffalo to celebrate the Puerto Rican and Hispanic Day Parade. Colorful flags wave in the air, music echoes through the neighborhood, and generations of families gather to honor their Puerto Rican and Latino heritage. But few realize that the story of Buffalo's Puerto Rican Parade did not begin in the 21st century. Its roots stretch back more than 50 years to the heart of the Lower West Side, where a small group of UB students and community activists transformed an idea into one of the most enduring cultural traditions in Buffalo and Western New York. A dream born on Virginia Street. In 1974, Buffalo's Puerto Rican community was growing and finding its collective voice. Families who had settled throughout the Lower West Side during the 50s and 60s built churches, businesses, social clubs, and organizations that shaped a vibrant and emerging community. It was during this period that the Puerto Rican Chicano Committee, a grassroots organization dedicated to civil rights and community empowerment, conceived and organized Buffalo's first Puerto Rican parade and carnival. The original concept was developed by Alberto Ocapas, then a young community activist and co-founder of PRCC. Working alongside fellow members and community residents, the idea quickly became a reality. Other co-founders who helped bring the vision to life included Francisco Perez, José y Evelyn Pizarro, Tino Mejía, Michael Rivera, Carmen Rodríguez, Roque Aguilar, José Hidalgo, Elsa Cruz, John Moffitt, Rosalí Román, Roberto Collado, María Rosa, Olga Pérez, María Cruz, Saint Capas, Miguel Medina, and many others. At the time, Capas also served as Associate Director of Minority Affairs at UB and publisher of the Latin Journal. Centered on Virginia Street, the soul and spirit of the Puerto Rican community, the parade and carnival became a powerful expression of Puerto Rican pride, culture, and unity. Father Antonio Rodriguez, a crucial early ally, Immaculate Conception Church and its pastor, Father Antonio Rodriguez, played a vital role in the success of the early celebrations. As one of the leading religious figures in the Hispanic community, Father Rodriguez embraced PRCC's vision at a time when the organization faced fierce criticism. PRCC was attacked and accused by some established Latino leaders of being socialist or communists, a familiar rhetoric used to discredit young activists who brought a more progressive approach to local politics. It was, in many ways, a local version of the statehood versus independence debate in Puerto Rico, an ideological clash between generations. Through Father Rodriguez's encouragement and cooperation, the church became a gathering place for families and parade participants. His support helped ensure that the celebration would flourish and become a source of pride for the entire community. More than a parade, the annual parade and carnival quickly became more than a festival occasion. It became a declaration. At a time when Latinos were struggling for recognition and equal opportunities, the parade announced to Buffalo that the community was here to stay. It signaled a new day, a community growing in numbers, in civic participation, and in voter registration, an effort PRCC made a major priority. Weeks were spent preparing floats, costumes, music, and performances. Virginia Street transformed into a sea of Puerto Rican flags and smiling faces. Families gathered, musicians performed, and thousands celebrated their culture with dignity and pride. For many, it was the first time they saw their heritage publicly recognized and honored. The heartbeat of Puerto Rican Buffalo, the Lower West Side became the heartbeat of the Puerto Rican community. Generations of families raised their children there, attended church, established businesses, and built organizations that shaped the future of the Latino community in Western New York. The parade became one of the neighborhood's proudest traditions. Although the original celebration eventually disappeared, erased or forgotten by some long-time community leaders, its spirit never died. Legacy continued. Decades later, the sons and daughters of past community leaders, many of whom once opposed PRCC, revived the tradition through the Puerto Rican and Hispanic Parade of Western New York. Today, the parade travels along Niagara Street, Avenida San Juan, bringing together Puerto Ricans and Hispanics from across the region. They declared their parade the first annual, effectively erasing the history of the original celebration on Virginia Street. But this year's parade is not a new story. It is the continuation of a story that began in 1974 when young activists carried the Puerto Rican flag proudly down Virginia Street for the first time. From one generation to the next, the torch has been passed. Remembering where it all began, history matters. Communities grow stronger when they remember the shoulders upon which they stand. The pioneers who built Buffalo's Puerto Rican community and established its first parade deserve to be remembered and honored. Their vision preserved a culture, strengthened a community, and created a tradition that has endured for more than half a century. As the Puerto Rican flag waves each year along Avenida San Juan, it also waves in memory of those who first carried it down Virginia Street, for it was there on Virginia Street that Buffalo's Puerto Rican Parade was born and where an essential chapter in the history of Puerto Rican Buffalo began. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Latino Village on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Nuestro Lower West Side, la capital de los latinos en Buffalo, Nueva York, lo que seguimos ignorando, por Alberto O. Capas. Cada año el desfile puertorriqueño recorre el Lower West Side de Buffalo, las mismas calles donde nuestras comunidades viven, trabajan y luchan. Los políticos aparecen. Líderes comunitarios suben a la tarima, se presentan, hacen promesas que nunca se cumplen y luego desaparecen. Y cuando se apagan las cámaras, la realidad de este vecindario vuelve a ser silenciada. Seamos claros, esto no es solo una ruta de desfile. Este es el centro de la comunidad latina de Buffalo, puertorriqueña, dominicana, mexicana, centroamericana y más. Aquí es donde las familias han construido sus vidas, donde la cultura se vive en voz alta y donde la resiliencia es parte de la vida diaria. También es donde nuestros comerciantes latinos se preparan para lo que debería ser su día más importante del año. Esperan clientela, movimiento y una oportunidad de que el desfile finalmente beneficie a la comunidad que dice celebrar. Pero año tras año los organizadores los ignoran. En lugar de crear eventos que mantengan a la gente en la calle Niágara antes y después del desfile, las festividades se trasladan a Niagara Square. Vendedores de fuera del vecindario toman el control, vendiendo cuchifrito, arroz con gandules, chuletas, rellenos, pastelillos y más. Presentaciones culturales y artísticas siguen, y al terminar la gente es dirigida a otros lugares para continuar la celebración. Mientras tanto, los negocios de la calle Niágara, el corazón de nuestro corredor latino, quedan atrás. Se pierde una oportunidad de oro para el crecimiento económico de nuestra comunidad. Y aún así, este vecindario sigue enfrentando desinversión, abandono e invisibilidad política. No se puede respetar a una comunidad que te niegas a ver claramente. Llamado a la acción, es hora de que el desfile honre a la comunidad que dice celebrar. Hacemos un llamado a los organizadores, a los funcionarios electos y a las instituciones culturales para que se comprometan con un principio sencillo. Si el desfile comienza en la calle Niágara, la celebración económica debe quedarse en la calle Niágara. Apoyen a nuestros negocios, inviertan en nuestro corredor, construyan un desfile que fortalezca a la comunidad, no uno que simplemente pase por ella y siga adelante. El Lower West Side ha cargado este desfile por décadas. Ahora le toca al desfile cargar al Lower West Side. Page 8, Evict ICE, A Community Call to Action by Stephanie Mejia. By now, we have all seen the horrors that our community is experiencing due to the increased presence and attacks from the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Bureau, ICE. For months, we have seen community members rallying around our BIPOC and immigrant community by providing mutual aid support such as funds for food or legal support, or a shoulder to cry on as they process the traumatic events of losing a family member. All these methods are what have been keeping our community together, but another piece of action that more people should be paying attention to is the Evict ICE campaign. Evict ICE holds weekly protests outside 250 Delaware Avenue on Tuesdays from 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. with the goal of bringing awareness to the fact that Uniland leases to ICE who sit on the 7th floor. The lease expires on March the 31st, 2027, which means we have just under a year to change our community for the better. A bit about Uniland and other big players. Uniland is one of the largest developers in western New York. The Montante family, Uniland, owns the building and leases to the Jacob family, who owns Delaware North, the same Jacobs family who has donated thousands of dollars to the Trump administration and is now leading the charge in mass deportations and unnecessary detainment of individuals with open and legal cases. Very convenient to own a multi-use detainment building, isn't it? Delaware North is an anchor tenant. In 2013, the Erie County Industrial Development Agency approved $9.6 million in property and sales tax breaks for this project, public money that subsidized a building now profiting from ICE operations. Today, Uniland collects $2 million per year from ICE's lease, while taxpayers continue to subsidize the building through generous tax abatement that cost Buffalo and Erie County $791,000 in 2024 alone. So what do we do with this information? Take it to your neighbors, friends, cubicle buddies, etc., and talk about who is inhabiting that space in one of the most prominent spots in downtown Buffalo. talk about the why, and share information on what is happening so more people are aware of how their city is being used as a hub for inhumane detainment, future human rights violations, and more. Want to go a step further? Do not spend your hard-earned money at 250 Delaware Avenue, which houses several businesses that also profit from this slimy partnership. Places to avoid at 250 Delaware Avenue, Patina 250, Jake's Cafe, The Westin, Keybank, and DNC Gaming and Entertainment. Do not reserve your next dinner at Patina, skip your iced coffee at Jake's, do not book your wedding blocks at the Westin, change your bank to a credit union, and go gamble on some 50-50 tickets at the next local fundraiser. Our downtown area does not need an office full of people whose main goal is to separate families and violate as many rights as possible. The community does not need a group of submissive people carrying out every illegal and inhumane action the Trump administration asks for. Lastly, we have not forgotten that the lease expiring will lead to ICE leaving our area and just moving into another location. However, it will show the Trump administration and ICE Bureau that we, Buffalonians, will not tolerate this parasitic operation in our area, greatly annoy the heck out of those who have been benefiting from these inhumane actions, all while encouraging other communities to fight back against similar issues. Next article, Sharing My Experience with Buffalo, The Power of Storytelling by Manuel Hernandez, Personal and Institutional. In 1997, I created English 3285 at the University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras. It was not simply as a new literature course, but as an act of storytelling. The course challenged traditional literary canons by centering Puerto Rican literature written in the United States, stories that had long existed but were academically marginalized. Creating English 3285 meant asserting that lived experience, diaspora, and cultural memory belong at the core of literary study in such a traditional and legendary campus. More than 25 years later, English 3285 continues to make history. What began as a once-a-year elective in the School of Humanities is now a required course for English majors in the School of Education, a shift that breaks long-standing institutional norms at this legendary campus, my alma mater. It was and still is the only course at the undergraduate level completely dedicated to the writings of Tato Laviera, Esmeralda Santiago, Judith Ortiz Cofer, Victor Hernandez Cruz, Sandra Maria Esteves, and others. Even more powerful is that former colleagues, mentors, and even academic adversaries remain committed to teaching the course every semester, ensuring that these stories continue to be told, studied, and passed forward through generations. The accompanying photograph captures a defining moment in this storytelling journey. Three giants of the Puerto Rican diaspora literary tradition, Sandra Maria Esteves, Tato Laviera, and Nicolasa Moore, standing alongside me. The image was taken in 1998 when I traveled to New York City to interview these writers in preparation for the UPR Mayagüez Symposium, Puerto Rican Literature Written in the United States, a redefining of literary boundaries. This is what the power of storytelling looks like when it moves beyond the page, when stories reshape curricula, change institutions, and redefine who belongs in the literary canon. In 2012, a former chancellor of the University of Puerto Rico, Dr. Carmen Rivera, was invited to speak about the academic influence of the so-called diasporic writings within a traditionally canonical English program at an Institute for English Facilitators at the University of Puerto Rico. As an English facilitator, I listened to Dr. Rivera's presentation on how profoundly the course had altered the literary landscape of the English program. After 3 years of full-time instructional service from 1994 until 1997, I was denied an opportunity to study my PhD abroad and come back to teach English 3285, but the prose and poetry of US-based Puerto Rican writers will endure far beyond my lifetime and beyond that of my former colleagues and mentors. For me, the growth of English 3285 is deeply personal, yet it is the power of storytelling that transformed it into an institutional legacy. Page 9, from Rochester, New York, 2026 Alicia Torres Awards. Ibero is seeking candidates for the 2026 Alicia Torres Award, which will be presented at the upcoming Ibero State of the Latino Community on October the 15th, 2026. We invite you to nominate individuals who exemplify the qualities that defined Alicia Torres and who demonstrate the outstanding attributes that distinguished her life's work. The Alicia Torres Award honors a legacy of commitment, humility, and lifelong dedication to the development and well-being of Puerto Ricans and other Latinos in the city of Rochester. Alicia Torres was a quiet force, always behind the scenes, unselfishly giving her time to individuals, community activities, and the agency. She never sought recognition for her contributions. Through her efforts and through the inspiration she offered others, we can attribute much of the success of the Puerto Rican Festival and many other agency-sponsored events. This annual award is dedicated to her memory and to the many hours she devoted to uplifting both individuals and the broader community. We ask for your assistance in identifying individuals who you believe truly personify the spirit and example of Alicia Torres. The deadline is July the 31st, 2026. Submit by email iberoevents@iaal.org or by regular mail. Ibero-American Action League Alicia Torres Award, 124 Evergreen Street, Rochester, New York, 14605. Next article, Why I Write by Eri Alvarado. I always saw my interests as scattered. I write about politics, culture, poverty, community identity, power, history, relationships, institutional failure, and belonging. I challenge politicians, question systems, fight for my community, preserve culture, and ask why people and communities seem so disconnected from one another. I never thought these were separate conversations. To me, they are all having the same conversation. Everything I have ever written, argued, questioned, or fought for has revolved around the question of what conditions must exist for human beings and communities to flourish. The answer, I believe, is human enfranchisement. Modern societies are experiencing a crisis of disenfranchisement in which individuals and communities have been systematically separated from identity, belonging, dignity, agency, culture, meaning, and power. We call it loneliness, polarization, distrust, political dysfunction. We even call it mental illness. What if all of these things are manifestation of the same underlying condition? Communities collapse when systems sever people from one another, from meaning, from identity, and from their ability to influence the conditions of their lives. Disenfranchisement is the defining challenge of the 21st century because it manifests politically, economically, socially, culturally, emotionally, and globally through the systematic exclusion of people from meaningful participation in the systems that shape their lives. Human flourishing requires the restoration and preservation of identity, belonging, dignity, agency, culture, and meaningful participation. Culture is not entertainment. It is the mechanism through which communities preserve identity, transmit values, create belonging, exercise power, and resist erasure. The legitimacy of an institution, leader, policy, movement, or society should be measured by the degree to which it expands human flourishing and enfranchisement. This is the work I have dedicated myself to. I do not only criticize what is broken, but I also want to help imagine and build what comes next. Dismantling systems that perpetuate disenfranchisement must precede restoration, and the disruption of existing systems opens the door for us to ask, how do we build moving forward, and what conditions must exist for all communities to flourish? I believe these are the defining questions of our time, and I have been searching for their answers my entire life. I hope others join me in that quest. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the July 2026 issue of the Buffalo Latino Village. Your reader has been Marianne. Thank you for listening.